So what do you think propelled your rise to the highest post?
If I was alone in this decision-making process of taking on such a big role, I likely would have run away from it. And I was in an environment which had a curriculum that focused on transferable skills.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Thank you, Ntangeki. I really do, first of all, appreciate being on this show, the chance to share my journey and perhaps learn from others after they've seen it too. And we hope to learn as leaders. I've had many roles in my professional life, but academically, I graduated with an accounting and law degree. And then was quickly lucky enough to be certified as a project manager within the banking industry. And worked in such a role managing bank projects for the better part of 4 years before taking on a general MBA degree with the Warwick University. And then thereafter I went back to banking, but from a credit risk perspective, and worked in retail banking and dealt with when credit goes wrong and how to correct the situation. So I was in loan recoveries and was able to see firsthand about the challenges and difficulties of accessibility of credit in Tanzania. And then thereafter, 3 years, was lucky enough to be given an opportunity to work in the capital markets in Tanzania. And that was another eye-opener in terms of the challenge of access to capital. And thereafter, was able to get an opportunity to work with this current institute that I work with, which is the Tanzania Institute of Bankers. And currently I hold the role of the executive director here.
So tell me, this is a span of 10 years since you started your banking career to becoming the executive director of this institution. So what do you think propelled your rise to the highest post?
Well, I think the most critical thing is exposure. I think I was fortunate enough to be around leaders, potential leaders, current leaders in my journey of growth.
I want to take you back a bit. How did you gather courage to think that you can be the CEO of such a nationwide organization?
It was a fearful experience for me. However, I like to think that the people that surround you in terms of your sounding boards, the people who act as your sounding board, who encourage you, who encourage you to keep moving, to keep trying new experiences, and push yourself to see what else you can achieve. I think those are the kind of people that help a lot in situations like these. If I was alone in this decision-making process of taking on such a big role, I likely would have run away from it and said, look, I've got a salary at where I am.
Yes.
I can wake up and go to work just like every day.
You're comfortable where you are.
Yes.
You're doing well, probably.
Yeah, but there's always, those friends and colleagues, and also, parents also, I think are very instrumental in this situation. And it would be wrong if I didn't recognize the encouragement that I've received from my family as well. As my parents have been very supportive in terms of my journey of growth in my career. My first point of call is, ring home and say, look, I've got this decision to make. What do I do? And
your university schooling, did it have any impact on your career growth?
My university education, both my first degree and my postgraduate, I was in an environment which had a curriculum that focused on transferable skills, things like critical thinking, verbal and reasoning, essentially effective communication. So all those were taught as part of the curriculum while you were doing accounting and law modules. You're also being put in a scenario where you are presenting your work, you're working in teams, you are managing tight deadlines, you are having to talk to your tutors in a professional manner. So presentation was key. And during my general MBA program, I think we had more exposure to industry at that time. And I think there's a lot to be learned from, when students get an opportunity to learn from other industries, from other countries as well. I did my degree with the University of Warwick in the UK. However, most of the industry engagements that we were given to talk to industry experts who came to do presentations were not necessarily from the UK. They came from different countries around the world. Some were from the Middle East, some were from Australia, some were from Asia, and some were from Nigeria, West Africa. And those were strong learning experiences for me and eye-openers in terms of what is possible. And I think it contributed a lot to some of the strategic thinking that I was able to bring back from my postgraduate studies and be able to apply in a live working environment. And I can definitely say that that has contributed significantly to some of the achievements that I've been able to get to this day.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected you positively or negatively?
I think one of the most valuable outcomes of COVID, and I say this is a positive outcome, COVID-19, the pandemic actually accelerated our urgency to bring forward our online offerings. So as we speak, we've got online courses, both pre-recorded and also virtual classes where we provide live classroom sessions on web conferences, video-based conferences with a class which is remote. And we've been able to successfully run such a program for the period of a week and a half with positive results for our clients, which are the corporate members who are banks. And we've received some very good reviews, and we're very hopeful about bringing this offering to the rest of the industry. So I would say that this is one of the positive outcomes of COVID. We were able to step up our strategic plan and be able to start delivering on online learning at an earlier stage than what we previously planned.
So how are you able now to balance your work life? The corporate world, normally we have all this issue all the time, how to balance work life, whether we should spend more time with our families and loved ones or push on the numbers in the corporate world. How are you doing it? And especially you as a relatively young CEO, I presume even a young family.
Yes. I think it's always been a challenge during my journey, my career journey. I've had to learn, the hard way in terms of the importance of the life aspect of one's journey, and what that does to your work life. Your home life and your work life. How the two support each other. I've come to learn currently that my personal life is important because of the health aspect of things. You need time off work to be able to slow things down, to slow your thinking down, to be able to look after your health, to build your strength so that you can re-engage the challenges that you have at work. That requires setting aside time for exercise, setting aside time for healthy eating, having a balanced life where you have fixed hours, where you take off time from work and you engage with family and friends. And I've learned the importance of that in terms of how it positively impacted my ability to work more effectively. And one thing that actually provided an eye-opener is programs that support leaders. I'm a member of the Africa List, which is a CDC-funded program for young business leaders across the African continent, and I've done a training program on that project. which was an eye-opener for me to understand some of the leadership challenges other peers across the continent were facing, and how they were facing this, work-life balance challenge. And to some extent, the two are entwined. You solve your problems by also learning from how you live with your children.
Oh, yeah?
Leadership is also at home. How you solve conflicts is the same way how you solve conflicts at work.
Oh, yeah.
So I've learned a lot through that, and I've embraced that, the life aspect of my life as, the personal life aspect in my role as a leader, and picked lessons from that and applied them in my work environment.
Oh.
I'm not there yet. I'm still learning. There are a number of days where I spend, I burn the candlelight at the office, but I try as much as possible to set aside time to make sure that there is a rejuvenating aspect and the reconnection.
Oh, I guess that is part of the no more corporate life. Sometimes you have to spend more time in the office because some projects have got to be finished.
Yes.
So you don't have a choice. But of course, knowing that you so need to balance it out with your family is equally important.
You find yourself in a situation where you're asking yourself fundamental questions as to, in what way do I communicate?
What's your philosophy when it comes to empowerment and staff development?
Primarily, I would say if you want to lead an organization one day, soft skills are important.
It's not normally easy to have a young person leading majority of older people than they are. So was it ever a challenge to you when you came to TIOB as executive director?
It was intimidating. It was, being my first time in a position of leading an organization, and also, by first introduction, you're being introduced by a management team which is almost twice your age, give or take a few 10 years, 15 years here and there. You find yourself in a situation where you're asking yourself fundamental questions as to, in what way do I communicate? How do I communicate, what is really critical, what is urgent, and, how do I get to know this person in terms of where their capabilities are, where their skills gap are? How do I engage with this person in order to realize a strategic outcome? And I've learned a lot from that experience. Granted, the last 3 years have been very successful, but I think I give credit to also the maturity of the people that surround me, and their wisdom as well. Because one thing I learned very quickly joining TIOB was to allow myself to learn from the people that I found in the organization. And when I showed the willingness to learn, they were more than willing to share and to accommodate. And in that journey, they were able to open up and actually take on my ideas, and we tested these things out together, these ideas, these new ways of working, and where I was able to provide proof of concept for a new idea that it works, I was able to get a very strong buy-in from my team. And I would say that at this point in time, I can safely say, confidently say that age doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. You can meet the oldest person or the youngest person, so long as you can reach an understanding in terms of what works and what doesn't, and you can be able to convince each other and agree on a path that helps you to achieve the bigger goal. I think it's, in fact, the older generation is very powerful in terms of their memory of the institution and also the memory of the industry in its early stages. And they were able to bring that on board in terms of helping us to formulate a very strong strategy for TIOB.
Okay. I have seen, probably you took a different direction, but I have seen CEOs go to whatever kind of institution, and they go and tear it down, and they bring in their own directors, they bring their own head of departments, they bring their own other staff, and like they want to start afresh. Why didn't you do the same? as the other guys?
Well, I quickly learned that, I mean, I've been in those situations because I've worked in 2 different organizations before joining TIOB, and in those 2 organizations, at any point in time, there were changes in roles, positions in a similar nature where there's a change of strategy and we need a new set of skills, so we negotiate a way of replacing a certain position. That was effective for the strategy. What I saw as an opportunity when I arrived at TIOB was that although the option of replacing staff was there, it was very difficult to actually fathom that you could get anyone new who would understand a member-based organization, service-oriented organization like TIOB in terms of its centrality to the industry and be able to do the balancing act of providing a service. So the best option of being able to realize results in the quickest way possible was to leverage from the institutional memory that existed in the organization. And as soon as I tested that out and I saw it, I stuck to it, and it has helped me all the way through.
So you took advantage of the experience, the memory, and the loyalty they've had in this institution.
Exactly.
What's your philosophy when it comes to empowerment and staff development?
My philosophy is always, I believe in a continuous pace of learning, a continuous journey of learning. No one is ever too old to learn a new skill. And I believe learning can be in any environment. It doesn't need a certificate. It doesn't need a class where you book a class and you attend, you need a trainer, and then you do an exam. So I've been training my team as I go. Whatever ideas I have, I learn more about them, I impart the knowledge internally, we test them out, those ideas, and when we implement, I train on those skills.
Now, being busy as CEO, learning this big institution, do you ever get time to read, or you're too busy to even read books?
I think reading is very important. I must admit, during my first year on my assignment as the executive director of TIOB, I didn't set aside enough time to read. And on my second year, I made a commitment to myself to start reading more. And the first book I read on my second year on this assignment was The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It is a renowned book on strategy and applicable in corporate strategy as well. And I felt that TIOB as an organization needed to be able to navigate the complexities of its nature and how it can best serve the banking industry in Tanzania. And with that, I needed to be able to learn every aspect of stratagem. And so this was the first book I read. I found it very effective. I've read other books on leadership, which essentially touch on culture, organizational culture, and how to transform it, how to bring it along to a new strategic outcome. And nowadays I give myself targets. So for this year, I've got a target of 5 books.
5 books for the whole year.
5 books for the whole year.
Didn't COVID time help you read more, probably? Because you had a lot of downtime at home?
True. COVID time was a time to get some reading done. And during that time, I was able to read, one particular book on leadership by Brene Brown, which is Dare to Lead. And I think that brought along many aspects of what was a challenge for me during the last, 3 years. I, was able to introspectively go back and see where I struggled, and the solutions were somewhere in this book in terms of the thinking process. So it was a good time to read, to reflect.
So tell me, in the people in the banking sector, especially, are always busy people. They're always moving from one meeting to another with the client, internal meetings. How do you being a training institution that is trying to build professionals, and I believe in reading as a continuous process of learning, how do you build this culture of reading into your members? Well,
we're working towards that. What I've done in TIOB itself, I've started with my team. So what I did was last year, I went out and got a book for each of my management team members as a gift, so to say. Say, look, I'm reading this book, you read this one, and you read this one, and then from time to time, let's compare notes and see, what are we learning from these titles. So we're keeping each other honest. We're following up to see, what are the lessons that we're picking up from these titles. And thereafter, we are looking at how we can create a model that can be shared with our individual members. Our corporate members are fortunate enough to be members of associations, the Bankers Association, the CEO Roundtable, and all these other, industry-based organizations which help them build their capacity as leaders. But within TIOB, we believe that there's a way we can bring up a model of our own for our individual members to bring them up to speed in terms of the awareness that they need to be self-aware and to be aware of how they live with the people around them.
So if you are talking to a bank manager today or any CEO for that matter, what will be your message about personal involvement?
I would say taking the time out for personal reflection is important. What I would say to them is also the importance of their role and making sure that their environment is sustainable and has longevity. It's one thing being a branch manager for a branch that has survived, the shocks in the market of every kind and remained profitable, even without going into a loss, but it remains stable. And it's always a disappointment for a branch manager who's been a branch manager for a brief moment and then their branch gets closed down for not being profitable. And the difference is your level of self-awareness, your level of awareness of the environment around you, your strategic thinking as well, and being able to participate in the decision-making with regards to your business. So I would encourage a lot of self-reflection, a lot of reading, a lot of engaging with, with other professionals who are reading the same material. So I think the role of book clubs is important. And there are very few book clubs in Tanzania that at least I'm aware of. And I think these are important with a focus on personal development. I was lucky enough to be on a personal development course as part of my MBA program, which then started this kind of thinking for me. And it has helped a lot in my career in making sure that I remain balanced in my thought process, that I keep track of the bigger picture while handling daily challenges and crises, being strategically aware. So that would be the message I would give to a branch manager. Always focus on sustainability, longevity of your own ability to continue to drive your career. And own it. You are responsible for your career. It's no one else. No one else. It's yourself.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask you, now that you are the executive director of this organization and at this young age, where do you see yourself probably 10 years to come?
Well, what I've learned is I like working with people. Because I learn a lot from the people I work with, and I'm able to learn new things through people. Other people's experiences have brought me new knowledge. So in 10 years to come, I'd like to still be in a position where I can work with people, work with teams. And I think that's where, I think it goes back to the basic need for human beings to connect. And for me, I think it has done a lot for me as a human being. Not only in my career, but also as a human being in my personal life. It has made me a better person to be able to work with the people at TIOB. It has made me a better person to be able to work in the industry of the capital markets. I've learned a lot through my career in Tanzania, and I think I am who I am today because of the mentoring that I've received. And working with people is what brought that mentoring to fruition. So 10 years to come, I'm not role specific. I wouldn't be keen to say that I want to still be a CEO of an organization. It can be that I'm a head of a department or a senior manager or even a specific role in another industry within the financial services sector. But the key focus for me is I want to still be working with people 10 years to come.
As TIOB, and when I look at the banking industry in Tanzania, do you feel compelled or responsible for producing probably more chief executives for our banks? Because I see quite a lot other banks having foreign CEOs and senior executives. Do you feel that is part of your duty to at least improve the professionals so that they can be able to take these roles and have more local CEOs?
I very much believe and take ownership of my role as being part of the solution towards that. Mm-hmm. I think TIOB is solution oriented. I myself, in my capacity as in the leadership of this organization, I'm always looking for opportunities to mentor individual members, young bankers who are looking to build their career in banking, new graduates of our associates, professional programs. I often have, one-to-ones with our individual members and talk about what their career aspirations are. I believe that this can be achieved through a one-to-one conversation. If everyone committed to mentoring, a number of young, potential leaders, even those aspiring for, growth in the banking sector. Mm-hmm. This can be achieved. I think we do have a lot of bankers who are in organizations who are just looking for the right mentorship to be able to, to be ready for that leadership role in that bank or in that financial institution. Essentially, they need to be able to get that reassurance from their boards, that trust, and I think I go back to saying that, I wouldn't be here today if the governing council of the Tanzania Institute of Bankers didn't trust me to take a chance on a young person to lead this organization. I thank them, and I feel committed that I need to deliver on this promise. Yeah, and I think that's what every young leader would be committed to, delivering on their promise to a board of directors that has trusted them to be able to take up the leadership role in any bank, so long as they've received that, that nudge in the right direction, been told what do you need to actually take, to take leadership. If
someone is watching you right now and probably they are at the level of mid-level managers, they are senior managers, and they have a dream of one day becoming CEOs of organizations, whether banks or any other organization, what would be your message to them?
I think primarily I would say if you want to lead an organization one day, soft skills are important. You cannot go by word of mouth and the gift of gab, being able to present yourself in front of a multitude of people and speak well. You have to be able to demonstrate some level of skill in terms of being adept at your digital devices, because those are what we use nowadays in terms of providing financial services, in terms of leading organizations. Simple things like using a video web conferencing tool. You need to be able to do those things. Doing business analytics, intelligence, understanding financials at the most effective level to be able to formulate a way forward. You need to be able to demonstrate your critical thinking skills, your analysis, your transferable skills in terms of communication, written or verbal, your reasoning capacity. All these things are easily gained by continuously attending training programs that touch on those particular skills. And we at TIOB now provide those. We have partnerships with ICDL, which focus on digital skills. We have a partnership with now CISI, which is a globally accredited institute for securities and investments. It has some training programs that enhance financial skills. We also have an enhanced certification program at TIOB for our CPB with a new curriculum, and also new specialized courses in trade finance and what have you. So the core aspects of banking we cover. The soft skills we have partners who also cover. So I encourage any young banker who wants to aspire for a position in leadership in any organization within the financial services sector to start with TIOB. You know, the journey is there. Come talk to us. We can map it out for you.
Fantastic. Mr. Patrick Mususa, thank you so much for coming to our show. It has been a pleasure having you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.